Hello everyone, and welcome to my Hygge Crow. My name is Christina, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am coming to you from Sacramento, California. And today I have a special guest on the podcast. This is Elliot, my daughter, and she is taking her mid-morning sling nap. So I thought I'd go ahead and film with her. She loves it to be really loud and boisterous when she's napping during the day. So I figured she would appreciate it. So hopefully she'll stay sleeping, and if not, we will take it as it comes. I'm not wearing any knitted objects today, but Elliot is wearing her coming home set bonnet the pattern is by Rillarunt. And I knit the whole set and brought it to the hospital for her to wear as her coming home set. And she was almost 7 pounds when she was born, and it was absolutely massive on her. So she wore it for a couple little pictures. I'll put them in. But for the most part, we took her home in something else. It was very large. So she actually has grown into the bonnet now. I think she would also fit the pants, and I should bring them out and try them again. But the cardigan is still pretty large. So I don't know if I got gauged for that pattern, so I don't know if that was me problem or if it's just meant for a slightly larger newborn. 7 pounds is a little small, although definitely in the normal range. So yeah, she's actually now just getting her newborn size clothes. She's 8 pounds now, and her newborn size clothes are just getting a little bit tight. So yeah, she is 5 weeks old. So today I'm just kind of talking about what I knit in February officially, although I filmed my January knitting podcast pretty early in the month because I knew I would be having a baby and it wouldn't be happening right after she was born. So a lot of this knitting also happened in January as well. I definitely slowed down on my knitting after she was born, but at the same time, looking back, I did actually get quite a bit of knitting in. My husband's family came to stay with us right after she was born, and so we had a lot of people hanging out. My parents also come over a lot, so lots of people hanging out and holding her. And while they're holding her, I like to pick up my knitting and get a few rows in. And then I can also knit while she's napping. I can knit while she's in the sling. I'm getting very good at knitting while standing up and bouncing her. So that has been, some changes in my previous knitting schedule, but we're still, getting some finished objects and having fun while we're knitting. So that has been, it's been a fun almost 6 weeks with a new baby. So in terms of finished objects since the last podcast I filmed, I have 2. One I mentioned in episode 4, which was my Valentine's Day patterns. Oh, we're squeaky. So in my Valentine's Day patterns, I mentioned that I would be knitting on this Sophie scarf. Um, my two finished objects today are actually things that I acquired the yarn for, cast on, and finished since my January knitting uh, podcast. So these weren't in my stash plans video either. It sometimes the inspiration strikes and you just have to cast something on. And I did that about when I was about a week overdue with Elliot. I believe I cast on, yeah, I did. I casted on 4 projects, all of which you'll see today, in one day. And I'm actually really happy that I did that. It seemed a little crazy at the time, but I'm happy I did it because um, all of them were small projects, which was great because they were a lot more manageable just in terms of holding the project and also carrying the little bags around the house. It was a lot easier, and some of them are pretty simple. So for example, the Sophie scarf, so they were easier to knit on when I had just like sleep deprivation brain. So yeah, so really happy with my pregnant self, my pre-baby self for casting on those 4 projects because they are actually what I've been working on most since baby has been here. Okay, so as I was mentioning, you'll have to forgive me. Today she gave us a bit of a rough night last night, so she's been great all morning, but I'm still a little I don't know, frazzled. Okay, so Sophie Scarf by Petite Knit. I jumped on the bandwagon and I made it. It's, really fun knit. I know some people have talked about how it wasn't as mindless as they hoped it was because you had to count rows for increases and decreases. But I just popped a little stitch marker, or not stitch marker, a row counter on my project and, just used like a manual row counter. And so that was no problem for me. Um, I use a row counter on a lot of my knits. I don't know if that's unusual or not. But yeah, I love just like a manual row counter that you just slip right on onto your needles and you don't have to have a digital one or anything like that. The yarn that I used was Malabrigo dos Tierras in the color Neverland. And I mean, if you look at it, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I love that tonal variegation between like the light pink and the more mauve color. Um, and the yarn, this was the first time I've knit with that with that blend. Um, and it is 50% merino and 50% alpaca. And so when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, it'll be incredibly soft. Malabrigo yarns, in my experience, have been really soft. I've knit with a few. And I would say it feels soft, and then you put it on your neck, and it is actually a little scratchy, which is unfortunate. I have a pretty high scratch tolerance, so I will wear this anyways. I just love the color so much. But yeah, now I definitely know why they recommend cashmere for this pattern, and I will definitely think about that in the future if I knit this again, which I think I will. So that's my Sophie scarf finished. It took me about a month to knit that and this next project, which is the Best Beret by James and Watts, and it is knit in the um, yarn that's called for in the pattern, which is Harrisville Designs Highland. Yes, Highland. And the color is Aegean. And it's really cool yarn. It's like this aquamarine color with, it's tweedy, but the tweed little bits are in green and white. So I thought that was really interesting. And it's also a, not worsted spun, what's the other one? Woolen spun. It's also a woolen spun yarn. And I don't know that I've knit with woolen spun before. Maybe I have. But it is really, really light, which is cool. Yeah, after I blocked it, I kind of picked it up and I was like, whoa, this feels lighter than than before it was blocked, which is crazy because obviously it's the same amount of yarn. But um, yeah, so uh, the beret was supposed to be knit for my mom, for I was going to give it to her for Mother's Day. And I wanted it to be a surprise. And then when I finished it, it was too small. And I found that out because I had it blocking on the table when she came over to hang out with me and Elliot. And I thought that she saw it there because she had dropped some hints that she wanted a knit beret. And I had her pick out the yarn without telling her what it was for. And she, so it was sitting on the table. Apparently, she didn't see it or like didn't register that this was a beret that I had knit for her. But I thought that she did. So I just said, well, since you've already seen it, do you want to just go ahead and try it on? And yeah, it was too small for her, which I kind of figured because when I tried it on, it was too small for me, and I have a smaller head than her, I believe. So I was able to block it. I just took like a dinner plate and I blocked it this way to kind of just stretch it out as much as I can. This is the cast on edge, and it's an I cord. And so I just like tried to stretch out the I cord as much as possible. And it does actually, I got it big enough to fit me. So I won't be ripping it out. I will just keep this one for myself, and I'm going to knit a different one for my mom. The yarn isn't in stock right now, so I'm waiting for it to come back in stock. She actually went, after seeing this, the color was really different from what was on the website. And so we'll be trying a different color. She wants it in white. Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing for her beret. I did want to talk about the website where I picked up this yarn and also the Malabrigo yarn for the Sophie Scarf. It was Eat, Sleep, Knit, which I've never ordered from them before. I believe it's like a brick and mortar store in Georgia. And I'd never ordered from them before. And when I got my order, first of all, the shipping is really cheap, which is nice because that's not always the case. I think it was $4. But when my order came in, it came with a little, first of all, it came in like 3 or 4 days. I think that's the second time I said first of all. So second of all, it came in like, I want to say like 3 days, 4 days. And it came with a little scratcher, like a lotto scratcher, but like a rewards card kind of. And I just thought that that was so fun. And then I did the scratcher and I actually like won, I guess. a $20 store credit for their shop. So I will definitely be ordering from them again. Well, I'll be ordering this yarn for my mom's beret from them again, but other things as well because I just thought it was so fun. And also the shipping was super fast, which is nice because often I find I'll order yarn for something that I'm super excited about, and then by the time it comes, like my excitement has dwindled a bit. So I need that like immediate shipping so that I start my projects as soon as I'm like motivated to. So those are my two finished objects. I do have 6 whips, which is a lot. Some of them you will have seen before if you watch my January video, and some are new. But 2 of them I'll actually be putting on holds because they're just not conducive to knitting with a small baby. So the first one I'm going to share is one you've seen before. This is the Four Corners bulky version baby blanket. Pattern is by Pearl Soho. And it is, I'm knitting it in Cascade Pacific Bulky. The colors are gold, ruby, white, and then I have navy as well, which will be the last little triangle in the blanket. Last time on when I showed this, I was somewhere in the red section. So now I'm in the white section. Eventually I'll get to the blue section. I probably won't show this again until it's finished because it's not that interesting. But I am a little bit demotivated to work on it because Elliot has received quite a few handmade blankets from our wonderful community here in Sacramento and some that have been mailed as well. And I love them all. And now I feel like maybe she doesn't need this one, but this one does match the nursery, so I will finish it. I'm just like, I've lost a little steam because now she has so many baby blankets. One of them being this lovely quilt here that I really wanted to show off. I don't quilt myself, but I know lots of knitters do quilt, and I'm definitely quilt curious. So probably something I will pick up in the future, but I just thought it would be fun to share because the blocks are sheep, as you can see. So this was made by a wonderful friend from our church, and it was just so lovely. I had to share it. I would share all of the blankets, but there are many, and so I can't for time. But just because, sheep and wool and knitting, they all go together. So I did want to include this as our little backdrop today. So that's the Four Corners baby blanket. Again, that's a free pattern by Pearl Soho. It's a nice blanket. It's interesting to knit, but also pretty simple. It's been a challenge knitting it when I have Elliot on me because it's a lot of weight and yarn and a lot to move around. So I haven't been working on it all that much. Next up is the Seelig. Seelig, it's a scarf, and it was published in an issue of Pom Pom, I believe issue 30. And the pattern is by Katrin Schubert, and I'm knitting it in Cascade 220 Sport in the natural color and Malabrigo Caprino in Sandbank. And Malabrigo Caprino has some cashmere in it. It's super nice. And actually, I should have knit the Sophie Scarf in that because it is much softer than the other Malabrigo yarn that I did use. So again, I've showed this in a previous podcast, and this is one of the ones that I'm going to be putting on hold because it's simply, I have to pay too much attention for this to be a good idea to knit on with my current brain fog. So I did put a little progress marker here after the last podcast episode to track how much I knit, and all of that was knit before Elliot came. And I have not knit on it a single time since. I actually just took the needles out of it to work on a different project that I'll be casting on soon because I just know that I will work on it and make mistakes and just end up being frustrated. So this is gonna go away until I get more sleep. But yes, that is the Seelig, and I really love the pattern. I love the yarn. It's going to be a great finished object, just not for me right now. Next up is the Mystery Advent Mittens 2022 edition by Nina Pomerenke. And I am knitting these in Cloudborne Fibers Superwash Sock. And the colors are navy, ecru, and scarlet. This is discontinued yarn, so sorry, you won't be able to get it. But I had it in my stash and I wanted to cast this on. I did share these in my last video, and I have, not my last video, but my last, in my January knitting podcast, and I have now finished them. So this is the final pattern. And then on this mitten, there's this little snowflake star design. And then on the other one, it will say God Jul, which is Merry Christmas in Swedish and Danish and Norwegian. I'm not sure that it's Swedish, but I know it is Danish and Norwegian. But she lives in Sweden, so I feel like it must be also in Swedish. Anyways, I love it. I have not woven in the ends, so it's kind of like dangerous to try on, but it fits really nicely. I will say I'm a bit disappointed with my color work on this side where there are tons of really long floats. I think like the cuff and the mitten, or like the inner side, I did quite well. But yeah, I just thought I was better than this at color work. But I know that long floats can make it a little more challenging, and I'll get better at it. Also blocking might help, I'm not sure. But yeah, this is the first one. I'm a little ways into the second one. Well, like barely, just I have the little cuff done and like a couple rows of the wrist. And I am putting that on hold because I have to have the pattern open and follow along the rows. Every row is different. There's no pattern repeats on the outside side, and so I just can't do it. But it's also kind of like a Christmassy pattern, so I figure I'll just put it away until next Christmas, and then my child will be older and potentially be able to entertain herself for, some minutes at a time. And we'll see if I pick that back up next Christmas season. But yeah, that one's on hold. Next up, I will show my sweater number 11, which I am knitting for the bougie sweatshirt knit along. Last time I showed this, I believe I hadn't yet joined for the sleeves, so I have done that now. I went ahead and knit, I believe 10 extra rows of body before joining for the sleeves because it was gonna be, the armholes were gonna be way too small. So I have knit that, sorry, this is sweater number 11 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I'm knitting it in Drops Air in the wheat color. So yeah, I have finished the stockinette part of the body, and I'm now working on the twisted rib at the hem at the bottom. I literally just started before this podcast, so I don't really have anything to show. But I decided that I wanted to split the hem at the bottom and knit the back and front separately so that there's like a little split and knit the back longer than the front. All of my favorite oversized sweaters have that detail, and I think it will just, I'll like it more. I'm a little bit worried because it's twisted rib and I went down a needle size, so I'm a little worried that it will kind of come in too much rather than kind of just going straight. So I might knit a few rows and see if that is happening or not. I knit my rib pretty loosely because I don't know. I do something wrong. I'm probably not pulling the yarn tight enough when I switch between knits and purls. So we'll see how the rib ends up looking. But yeah, that's my plan. And then I'll knit sleeves. And I am hoping to have this done by the end of that knit along. I believe it ends in March. So yeah, just plugging away on this guy. I am loving the Drops Air. It makes it a really lightweight fabric, but also has like some cool variegation within the yarn, and it also has like a halo as if I'm holding mohair with it, which I'm not. So that's nice. A budget way to get like mohair halo without buying all the mohair. All right, so that is that whip. And then I'll show this one next. This is a project bag from Shop Knitting Nelly. I'm obsessed with it. Yep, it's my only project bag. And yeah, I love it. And when I bought it, it came with hand-dyed yarn from Little Lionhead Knits in, I believe the colorway was Frosty Forest. So it's like a sock set. It comes with one regular size skein and two mini skeins. And I wanted to find a project that I could use all three in the same project. And I landed on the Magic Toadstool socks by Stone Knits. She's like very asleep. The Magic Toadstool socks by Stone Knits. And I am knitting them two at a time. I just figured that would be best since I'm kind of taking a longer time with them. I want my tension to be the same, and I don't want to fall prey to second sock syndrome. But I am loving them so far. I like my little mushrooms. I didn't do the three stranded color work to add the little dots in the toadstools, and I actually think I like the mushrooms without the dots, so I might not go back and add them in. Because you have the option to go back and do um, the stitch where you stitch over other stitches. Oh, I'm not gonna remember it. I'll just put it up when I edit the video. Um, but yeah, I have so many ends that I'm gonna have to weave in eventually, but I think they're so cute. This was my first time knitting socks two at a time with Magic Loop. I had knit gloves before, like fingerless mitts, not gloves. Um, but socks were definitely a little more challenging in terms of like the mental gymnastics of like how do I like turn the heel and pick up for the heel gusset, but we got there. I had to do a little shifting after the fact because I got it wrong first, but I just used a DPN and it all worked out. So yeah, now I'm just knitting down to the toe. There's a little bit of color work right before the toe, and I'm loving them. The yarn itself is awesome, super soft. I'm pretty sure that once I finish these, I would have enough yarn to knit a pair of shorties with the same yarn. And I was going to do that, and then I realized that actually I'd like to use the green yarn, scrap yarn that remains for my paper houses, uh, a robe, wearable blanket that I am intending to knit someday with kind of my single skeins and scraps, because I think that color will work well with the color scheme that I am going for. So I'm actually going to save my scrap yarn for that scrappy project. Next up, I have my Ola's shorts. So this is a little pattern for Elliot. Yeah, Ola's shorts by Marianne J. Bjerkman. And they are, I'm loving them. I'm almost finished. I'm knitting them with Cascade 220 Superwash Merino and like fingering weight, with two strands held together. And this pattern and the last pattern, the Toadstool socks, were in my knitting plans from Stash video. So even though I cast on two projects that weren't in that video, I did cast on two that were. So I'm still, working on my stash. And yeah, it's kind of, I feel like it's hard to show what's gonna go on here because there's like folding and buttons. So these will be folded like that, and then there'll be buttons, and obviously it'll be like little overalls. There's lots of buttons in the pattern. I'll just put up a picture so you can see. But all that I have left to do is cast off this little leg hem, and then I'm going to go back in and knit the pockets and the little straps for, yeah, for the overalls. And I have no idea when this will fit her. Probably not for a little bit. But loving it, loving the pattern. I will definitely have this one done by my next podcast. So that is exciting. I did knit it in the 6-month size. So we'll see. She's a little on the small small side. So I'm hoping for it to fit around the fall, just because it'll be a little warm in merino, although they are shorts. We'll see. Okay, I think that was all my whips. There's a lot of them. And now I do have some acquisitions, kind of a lot, as you can tell by my little yarn pyramid over here. Some things happened. Since I'm not knitting a lot, but I'm also not super active because she's on me a lot of the time, either nursing or sleeping or, we're trying to calm her. I haven't been doing a ton of knitting, but I have been doing a lot of Ravelry scrolling and like yarn window shopping, and sometimes window shopping turns into actual shopping. And so hence all of my acquisitions here. So I'll just start from the top. So these first three skeins were a gift from Joel for Valentine's Day, and I essentially handed him my phone with a bunch of yarn in the cart, and I said, you should buy these for me and give them to me for a special occasion. And he did, because he is a wonderful husband. This first one, I was going to look up how to say this before I did the podcast, and I didn't. But these three are all from Bad Sheep Yarn Company. Bad Sheep Yarn, yeah. And apparently they're hand dyed in the North Pole, Alaska, so that's really fun. And I 100% fell prey to Instagram ads. They advertised to me, and I went to the website and I looked around and I bought yarn. So I guess Instagram ads work. A good business decision on their part. But all of these yarns are for planned projects. If you watched my stash, my January, my 2023 knitting plans video, you'll know there was a couple projects that I was planning for, that I have the base yarn for, but I needed a contrast yarn. So this first one is Retroviles. No idea. It is French for reunion. I'll obviously put it up on the screen because that is certainly not how you pronounce it. And it is it's like a sock yarn, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it's 462 yards fingering weight. And I absolutely love the super subtle speckling in this one. Oh, we're having a bad dream. Yes, bad dream. I love the speckling. I am going to be knitting the Primavera sweater with this and some Swan's Island yarn I have in the color Russet. I think it's going to be really nice and contrasty. The color work on that sweater is really delicate. Oh, you're awake. And so you kind of need a high contrast to make sure it shows up. So I think this will be perfect. And then just a little subtle speckling. And then this one is a 100% superwash merino sport weight, 328 yards per skein, and it is in the color Vivant, which is alive in French. And this I will be pairing with some yarn I have in my stash to knit the Pressed Flowers cardigan. So very excited about these acquisitions from Bad Sheep Yarn. I haven't knit with it yet, so I can't tell you exactly how wonderful it is, but I'm sure it will be lovely. And yeah, I'm just so excited for those colors. Okay, next up is a simple one. This is Knit Picks Stroll in the color Sapphire Heather. It's a 50-gram ball, 231 yards. Oh, we're awake. And I had just heard that this was a good budget sock yarn, so I wanted to try it. Oh, we have to bounce. Okay, I think we might be happy for another couple minutes while I finish up. This is a nice budget sock yarn. I'm planning to knit the Spoondrift socks, which are shorties, in this color. And I bought it because I needed to buy Eucalyptus to wash some stuff. And it was cheaper to buy it from Knit Picks than it was from Amazon. And so I just said, you know what? I've been wanting to try this yarn anyways. So we're just going to do it. And I did. And then something bad or very good happened, which is, if you've watched any of my other videos, you probably know that my favorite yarn in the world to knit with is Swan's Island, which is a company out of Maine, and they do lots of like textiles, and yarn is kind of just something they do on the side. We're looking around, and I looked on their website, which I shouldn't have, and they were running a 40% sale, and so Joel encouraged me to grab some of that while it was on sale, because usually I'm like trying to buy it in D-stashes or on eBay or whatever, so I don't always get like the ideal color that I want, but I picked some up. This is what I usually go for, which is the Natural Colors collection. It's a fingering weight. It's really gorgeous, got variegation. Oh. And this is in vintage lilac, so that's beautiful. And then I wanted to try one of their other bases, which is, they call it their Sterling collection, and it is 85% organic merino and 15% alpaca. And so I picked up two skeins in the color Jade. Okay. And one in the color Malachite. So I'm excited to knit with those. I do have some projects planned, but they're loosely planned. And yeah, we'll just kind of see what happens. So thanks for staying tuned in. Sorry, we're having a little fussy time. But yeah, it was lovely chatting about yarn and knitting, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.